The Helion cluster hung in space like a handful of jewels scattered across black velvet. 7 colonies, each on a different moon or asteroid, mined the rare minerals that powered faster than light engines. Over 3 million people lived and worked in the cluster. They represented a dozen different species, all believing they were safe under Council protection. They had no idea they were about to become pawns in a political game. Admiral Kang. Jisoo stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched the tactical display with cold calculation. She was 50 years old with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. Before the Council forced Earth to disarm, she had commanded humanity's largest battle group. Then she had been forced into retirement, her skills deemed unnecessary in a galaxy that promised peace. Now she commanded again. But not the old fleet. She commanded something new. "Status report," she said. Captain Ominji stood at the tactical station. She commanded the Relentless, another retrofitted carrier that had been pulled from the scrapyards. Like Jisoo, she was a veteran forced into retirement who had never stopped being a warrior. "We have 12 ships ready for combat," Minji reported. "The Indomitable, Relentless, Defiant, Unyielding, and 8 others. All systems are operational. The Thros fleet is approximately 1 hour from the Helion cluster. They outnumber us 10 to 1. "Numbers are not everything," Jisoo said. Captain Doyen stood beside her. He had transferred from diplomatic duty back to his ship as soon as the Council session ended. Around him, his crew prepared for battle. Lieutenant Park Jiwon monitored the hybrid reactors. Master Sergeant Lee Junho prepared his Marines. Officer Song Yoonji tracked enemy communications. Commander Baek Minho sat at the pilot station, his hands steady on the controls. "Admiral," Doyen said, "we are outnumbered and outgunned. Even with our modifications, we cannot win a straight fight against the Thros fleet." "Then we will not fight straight," Jisoo replied. "We will fight like humans." "Sergeant Junho, what is the first rule of asymmetric warfare?" Hunyo smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Never fight the battle your enemy expects." The Thros fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. 40 warships, each bristling with weapons. Their hulls gleamed with fresh paint. Their shields flickered with barely contained energy. They were the pride of the Confederacy, equipped with the latest technology and crewed by professional soldiers. They had come to destroy a Council colony and plant evidence blaming humanity. Instead, they found 12 battered human ships waiting for them. The Thros fleet commander broadcast on all frequencies. His translator gave his voice a harsh mechanical quality. "Human vessels, you are in violation of Council space. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." Admiral Jisoo responded calmly. "Thros fleet, you are the ones in violation. We have evidence of your planned false flag attack. Surrender your ships and submit to Council authority." The Thros commander laughed. The sound was ugly. "You dare threaten us? You have 12 ships. We have 40. Your vessels are ancient scrap held together with desperation. We will crush you and then proceed with our mission. Your species will be blamed for atrocities and the Council will applaud as Earth burns." "I gave you a chance," Jisoo said. Then she cut the communication and turned to her crew. "All ships engage at will. Show them what human scrap can do." The battle began with the Thros fleet firing a coordinated missile volley. Hundreds of warheads streaked through space, enough firepower to obliterate a small moon. The human ships scattered, breaking formation in ways that looked panicked and uncoordinated. It was not panic. It was tactics. The Indomitable dove toward the nearest asteroid field, the Relentless right behind her. The Thros missiles followed, their targeting systems locked on the fleeing ships. Then at the last possible moment, both human carriers reversed thrust and spun around, their point defense systems firing at full power. Modified mining lasers, the same weapons that had surprised pirates in the frontier, tore through the missile swarm. Explosions lit up the darkness. The few missiles that survived the defensive fire struck human shields, which absorbed the impacts and held. "Return fire," Jisoo ordered. The human ships were not built for direct confrontation. They were built to survive and adapt. Their weapons were not the most powerful in the galaxy, but they were unpredictable, and unpredictability was a weapon all its own. Drone swarms erupted from launch bays, not the simple mining drones from before. These were combat drones, equipped with artificial intelligence that the Council had banned as too dangerous. They did not follow simple attack patterns. They learned. They adapted. They found weaknesses in enemy shields and exploited them ruthlessly. The Thros ships tried to shoot down the drones, but for every one destroyed, 2 more slipped through and latched onto hulls. Some carried explosive charges. Others hacked into ship systems and caused malfunctions. A few simply blocked sensor arrays, blinding the vessels they attached to. Captain Ominji commanded the Relentless with the precision of a surgeon. She targeted not the strongest Thros ships, but the command vessels, the ones coordinating fleet movements. Her modified kinetic launchers, originally designed to push asteroids, fired solid projectiles at tremendous velocity. Thros shields could stop energy weapons. They were not designed for chunks of dense metal traveling at a significant fraction of light speed. One Thros command ship took a direct hit. Its shields collapsed. Its hull crumpled. It went dark and began tumbling through space. "Target destroyed," Minji reported. Her voice was calm, as if she had just completed a routine exercise rather than destroying a warship. The Thros fleet tried to reform, but the humans gave them no chance. Commander Baek Minho piloted the Indomitable like a fighter craft, weaving between enemy ships and forcing them to fire at awkward angles. Other human vessels used the asteroid field as cover, appearing and disappearing in ways that confused enemy sensors. Master Sergeant Lee Junho watched the battle unfold and identified his opportunity. One Thros cruiser damaged by drone attacks drifted close to the Indomitable. Admiral requesting permission for boarding action. Granted. Make it fast. Junho and his Marines launched in boarding pods. They crossed the distance in seconds, cutting torches burning through the Thros hull. Inside, they found a crew unprepared for close combat. The Thros were larger and stronger than humans, but they fought by rules. They formed defensive lines and fired disciplined volleys. The humans did not fight by rules. They used grenades in enclosed spaces. They hacked life support systems and vented atmosphere. They attacked from unexpected angles and disappeared before the enemy could respond. Within 20 minutes, the cruiser was theirs. Ship secured, Junho reported. Minimal casualties. Taking control of weapon systems now. The captured Thros cruiser turned its weapons on its former allies. The psychological impact was devastating. The Thros fleet began to fracture, ships breaking formation as captains tried to identify which vessels were still under friendly control. Officer Song Yunji broadcast across all Thros communication channels. She had recorded everything, every order given, every tactic used. Now she transmitted it all along with the evidence of the planned false flag attack. "Thros fleet," she said, her voice carrying across the battlefield. "You came here to commit atrocities and blame humanity. But the galaxy is watching. Every species with sensors in this region is recording this battle. They see you attacking a council-protected zone. They see you trying to destroy human ships that are defending civilians. Your conspiracy is exposed. Your commanders will face justice." Not all Thros ships continued fighting. Some began retreating, their captains realizing they had been caught in an unwinnable situation. Others fought with increasing desperation, knowing capture meant trials and punishment. Dr. Choi Sumin monitored the battle from the Indomitable's engineering section. The hybrid reactors were pushed to their limits, power output fluctuating wildly as weapons and shields drew more energy than the systems were designed to handle. "Admiral, we are running hot," Sumin reported. "Reactors are at 110% capacity. We can maintain this for maybe another 30 minutes before we risk core breach." 30 minutes is all we need," Jisoo replied. "Captain Doyen, target their flagship. If we can take out their command structure, the rest will collapse." The Thros flagship was a massive dreadnought, 3 times the size of the Indomitable and bristling with weapons. It hung back from the main battle, directing fleet movements while staying safe behind layers of escort ships. Doyen studied the tactical display and formulated a plan. "All ships concentrate fire on the escort vessels. Create a corridor. We are going for the flagship." What followed was the most intense fighting of the battle. Human ships focused their fire on a single section of the Thros defensive line. Modified mining lasers carved through shields. Kinetic projectiles shattered hulls. Drones swarmed any ship that tried to close the gap. The corridor opened. The Indomitable accelerated, her engines straining, pushing through the gap before it could close. Thros ships fired at her from all sides. Her shields flickered and failed. Hull plating vaporized under concentrated fire. Warning alarms screamed across every deck. "Hull breach in sections 7 through 12, Engineer Nam Hijin reported. "Mitab." Council Space Station Nexus Prime orbited a beautiful blue star at the center of Galactic Council territory. It was massive, large enough to house representatives from hundreds of species. Its halls gleamed with precious metals. Its gardens grew plants from 1,000 different worlds. Everything about it spoke of power, order, and control. Captain Doyen hated it immediately. He walked through the diplomatic section alongside Ambassador Yoon Mira, both wearing formal uniforms that felt stiff and uncomfortable after weeks in space. Around them, aliens of every shape and size moved through the corridors. Some looked human enough. Others were so strange that Doyen could not immediately tell which end was the head and which was the tail. "Remember," Mira said quietly, "let me do most of the talking. The Council is very sensitive about protocol. Say the wrong thing to the wrong species and you could start a diplomatic incident." "I destroyed 15 pirate ships," Doyen said. "How much worse can a diplomatic incident be?" "Trust me, much worse." They entered a conference chamber where the Council Security Committee waited. The committee consisted of 12 species, each representing a different faction within the larger Council structure. Observer Prime was there, his blue skin darker than usual, clearly still angry about humanity's refusal to scrap the Indomitable. Beside him sat representatives from the Thros Confederacy, their breathing masks hissing softly. "Captain Doyen," Observer Prime said without preamble, "your actions in the frontier territories have caused considerable concern. The vessel you claimed for salvage engaged in military action against 15 ships. You used weapons that were not properly registered. You deployed autonomous combat systems that violate Council artificial intelligence protocols." Councillor Ryu Seojun, humanity's official representative to the Council, stood from his seat. He was an older man with gray hair and the patient expression of someone who spent his days navigating bureaucratic nightmares. "With respect," Seojun said. Captain Doyen responded to a distress call. "He saved civilian lives. The Galactic Council Charter specifically allows for armed intervention in cases of piracy and slaving. His actions were completely legal." "The weapons he used were not legal," a Thros representative said. Its translator made the words sound harsh and angry. "Mining equipment modified for combat. Drone systems using banned artificial intelligence. This was a violation of disarmament agreements." Ambassador Mira stepped forward. "Show me the specific treaty violation." "Mining lasers are civilian equipment. Asteroid deflection systems are civilian equipment. The drones used basic targeting algorithms, no more sophisticated than those found in commercial navigation systems." The chamber erupted into argument. Species shouted at each other in a dozen different languages. Translators struggled to keep up. Doyen stood silently and let the politicians fight while he studied the faces around the table. Some species looked genuinely concerned. Others seemed calculating, as if trying to determine how this development could benefit them. But a few, particularly the Vrelian and Thros representatives, looked angry, not just angry about protocol violations, angry that humanity had succeeded. After an hour of argument, the committee called for a recess. Doyen and Mira stepped into a private room where Councillor Seojun was waiting. "That went better than I expected," Seojun said dryly. "At least nobody challenged you to ritual combat." "Do I want to know what ritual combat involves?" Doyen asked. "No," Mira and Seojun said simultaneously. "Captain," Seojun continued, "I need you to understand the political situation. Half the Council species are impressed by what you accomplished. They see potential military contracts and technology sharing agreements. The other half is terrified. They realize that humanity might not be as weak and dependent as they thought." "Good," Doyen said. "We should not be weak and dependent." "I agree," Seojun said. "But the Vrelian Imperium is making moves. They are claiming that the Indomitable violates weapons treaties. They want it seized and dismantled. Some of the other species are supporting them because they do not want humanity to have any military capability at all." Ambassador Mira pulled up a holographic display showing ship movements near Earth space. "We are tracking increased Vrelian military activity. 3 of their battle groups have moved closer to the Sol system. They are calling it routine patrol activity, but we know better. They are preparing to seize the Indomitable by force," Doyen said. "Probably," Mira agreed. "And if they do, Earth does not have the military strength to stop them." The Council made sure of that. What Doyen did not tell them was that the Indomitable was not the only ship. While he had been fighting pirates in the frontier, Other teams had been working in hidden facilities across human space. Old carriers like the Indomitable were not the only vessels that could be retrofitted. There were destroyers, cruisers, even old battleships that had been scheduled for scrapping. He had received a coded message before coming to Nexus Prime. Admiral Kang Jisoo, newly promoted to lead humanity's defense initiative, was overseeing the work. She reported that 12 ships were operational. Another 20 were in various stages of retrofit. Humanity was building a fleet in secret, using scrap and salvage and pure stubbornness. But they needed time, and time was running out. The council reconvened 3 days later. This time the session was not just the security committee. The full council assembly gathered with representatives from over 300 species crowding into the massive chamber. Observer Prime stood at the central podium, his forearms gesturing dramatically. The human vessel known as Indomitable represents a clear and present danger to galactic peace. It is armed beyond civilian specifications. It uses banned technology. It must be surrendered to council authority immediately. Councillor Seojun stood to respond. Captain Doyen's ship saved lives. It stopped pirates who have been raiding with impunity for years. If the council is concerned about weapons specifications, perhaps it should focus on the criminal fleets operating in its own territory, rather than harassing humans who are actually solving problems. The chamber erupted into chaos again, but this time the arguments took on a different tone. Some species began openly supporting humanity. Others demanded military action. The diplomatic unity that had always characterized the council was cracking. Officer Song Yoonji was not at the council meeting. She was aboard the Indomitable, monitoring communication channels and analyzing data patterns. She had a gift for seeing connections that others missed, and something had been bothering her for days. The Thros Confederacy had been too eager to support the Vrelian demands. They had been too prepared with legal arguments. They had known exactly which treaties to cite and which loopholes to exploit. It suggested advanced planning. Coordination. Yoonji dug deeper into the data, using algorithms that she had written herself to search for patterns. She hacked into public databases, cross-referenced ship movements, analyzed diplomatic communications that had been carelessly left unsecured. What she found made her blood run cold. She immediately sent an encrypted message to Captain Doyen, bypassing normal communication channels. The message was simple: "We have a problem. Major problem. Need secure meeting immediately." Doyen received the message during a break in the council session. He excused himself and found a private chamber where he could establish a secure connection to his ship. Yoonji's face appeared on the holographic display. She looked exhausted and frightened. "Captain, the Vrelian Imperium and the Thros Confederacy are planning something. I found encrypted communications between their military commands. They are coordinating fleet movements, but not near Earth, near the Helion Cluster." The Helion Cluster was a region of space with valuable mineral deposits. Several species had colonies there. It was council-protected territory. "Why would they attack the Helion Cluster?" Doyen asked. "They are not attacking it," Yoonji said. "They are planning to attack it and blame humanity. A false flag operation. They are going to destroy a council colony and plant evidence that human ships did it. Then they can justify military action against Earth. They can dismantle our entire species under the guise of justice." Doyen felt ice in his stomach. "Do you have proof?" "Yes, recorded communications, fleet orders, supply requisitions, everything. But Captain, this is happening soon, maybe within the next week. Can you broadcast this to the council?" "I can try. But if I do, they will know we hacked their communications. They might claim the evidence is fabricated. Some species will believe them because they want to believe them." Doyen made a decision. "Send everything you have to Admiral Kang Jisoo. Tell her to prepare the fleet. All of it. Every ship that can fly. And then send copies to Councillor Seojun and Ambassador Mira. Captain, if we deploy our fleet, we are revealing everything we have been building. The secret will be out." "The secret does not matter anymore," Doyen said. "If the Thros and Vrelians succeed with their plan, Earth will be destroyed. We have to stop them, even if it means going to war." He returned to the council chamber with new purpose. The debate was still raging, species shouting at each other about jurisdiction and treaties and protocol. Doyen walked to the center of the chamber, ignoring diplomatic protocol, and activated his personal communicator at full volume. The frontier territories stretched across the edge of known space like a ragged scar. Here, the Galactic Council's authority meant little. Pirates operated freely, raiding cargo vessels and selling their plunder on black market stations. Even Council patrol ships avoided the region, unless they traveled in large groups. Doyen brought the Indomitable through the border checkpoint with forged authorization codes and a cargo manifest that listed her as a civilian transport. The Council inspector who scanned the ship barely looked up from his datapad. "Another human ship," the inspector muttered. "Why do you people insist on flying these old pieces of junk?" "The Council offers modern vessels at reasonable lease rates. We like our junk," Commander Baek Minho said from the pilot station. He was a thin man with quick reflexes and a smile that never quite reached his eyes. He had flown everything from atmospheric fighters to orbital interceptors before the Council forced Earth to ground its military pilots. The inspector waved them through without further questions. As soon as they cleared the checkpoint, Officer Song Yunji activated the ship's full sensor suite. She was young but brilliant, with a talent for reading electronic signals that bordered on supernatural. "Captain, I am picking up distress signals," Yunji said. Her fingers danced across her console, pulling data from the sensors. "Multiple sources. Approximately 40 light minutes ahead. Civilian convoy under attack." "How many attackers?" Doyen asked. "Sensors show at least 15 ships. Pirate raiders based on their signatures. They are using older Vrelian cruisers and modified cargo haulers with weapons grafted onto their hulls." She paused, listening to the garbled distress calls. "The convoy is from multiple species. Thros, Vrelian, even some Kelvin traders. The pirates are not discriminating." "Council patrol ships?" Doyen asked, though he already knew the answer. "None in range. The nearest Council vessel is 3 days away at maximum speed." Master Sergeant Lee Junho appeared on the bridge, having climbed up from the marine deck below. His armor was scarred from 100 battles, kept functional through constant maintenance and sheer stubbornness. Behind him, 30 Marines waited in the deployment bay, checking weapons and running last-minute equipment tests. "If we are going to intervene," Junho said, "we need to do it now. Those civilian ships will not last long." Doyen stood from his command chair and looked around the bridge. His crew stared back at him, waiting for orders. They had rebuilt this ship. They had turned scrap into something potentially dangerous, but they had not yet tested it in real combat. This would be their proof. This would show whether all their work meant anything. "Battle stations," Doyen ordered. "Commander Minho, take us in. Best possible speed." The Indomitable surged forward, her hybrid engines pushing her faster than any ship her age had a right to move. The crew rushed to their positions. Weapons charged, shields flickered to life. Deep in the ship's core, the modified reactors hummed with barely controlled power. 20 minutes later, they arrived at the battle. The scene was chaos. A convoy of 12 civilian ships scattered in all directions, trying desperately to escape. The pirate fleet surrounded them like predators circling wounded prey. Energy weapons flashed in the darkness. Missiles streaked between ships. One of the civilian vessels exploded as Doyen watched, torn apart by concentrated fire. "They have not noticed us yet," Yunji reported. "We are reading as a civilian transport on their sensors. They think we are just another target." "Good," Doyen said. "Let them think that. Minho, bring us within weapons range, but keep our approach vector non-threatening. Make it look like we are trying to run away." The Indomitable moved closer, broadcasting civilian distress codes and positioning herself as if preparing to flee. The pirate ships ignored her completely. They were too focused on the easier targets. The cargo haulers loaded with valuable goods. Then one pirate vessel, a converted Vrelian cruiser with weapons bolted to every available surface, turned toward the Indomitable. Its captain probably saw an easy kill, an old human ship that could be looted and scrapped. "They are locking weapons on us," Yunji said. "Preparing to fire." "Return fire," Doyen said quietly. What happened next happened fast. The Indomitable's mining lasers, hidden behind civilian equipment housings, pivoted and fired. They were not military-grade energy weapons. They were tools designed for cutting asteroids. But asteroids did not move or try to defend themselves, so the lasers had been built for raw power rather than finesse. The first laser strike punched through the pirate cruiser's shields like they were made of paper. The beam carved a line of molten metal across the hull, severing power conduits and venting atmosphere. The second and third strikes hit simultaneously, targeting the engines and weapon systems. Within 5 seconds, the pirate cruiser went dark and began tumbling through space, crippled and helpless. The other pirate ships finally noticed the Indomitable. They saw their companion vessel destroyed and recalculated their threat assessments. This was not a civilian transport. This was something else. They are breaking off their attacks on the convoy, Unji reported, reforming into attack formation. All 15 remaining ships are targeting us. Lieutenant Park Ji-won spoke from the engineering station. Shields are holding. Power levels are stable. All weapon systems are operational. Junho, Doyen said into the communication system. Are your Marines ready? Ready and waiting, Captain. The pirate fleet attacked as a coordinated unit, firing missiles and energy weapons simultaneously. It was a tactic designed to overwhelm defenses through sheer volume of fire. Against most ships it would have worked. But the Indomitable was not most ships. The point defense systems, upgraded with targeting software salvaged from destroyed pirate vessels, tracked every incoming missile. Modified industrial lasers, the same ones used to blast debris away from mining operations, fired in rapid sequence. Missiles exploded harmlessly in space, picked off before they could reach the ship. The energy weapons struck the Indomitable's shields. They held, barely. Warning alarms screamed across the bridge as power levels fluctuated and backup systems engaged automatically. Return fire, Doyen ordered. All weapons. Tech specialist Shin Do-hyun launched the drones. Do-hyun was a quiet man who rarely spoke unless he had something important to say. He had spent the last 3 weeks programming autonomous combat drones using artificial intelligence algorithms that the Council had banned decades ago as too unpredictable. Now he activated them with a simple keystroke. 50 drones, each no larger than a fighter craft, erupted from concealed launch bays. They scattered like a swarm of angry insects, their simple AI minds focused on a single goal: destroy the enemy. The pirates had shields designed to stop large weapons. They were not prepared for hundreds of small, fast-moving objects that could slip through defensive screens and attach themselves directly to hulls. The drones swarmed the pirate ships. Some carried explosive charges. Others had cutting lasers. A few simply hacked into enemy computer systems and caused critical malfunctions. Pirates frantically tried to shoot them down, but for every drone destroyed, 2 more found their targets. Commander Minho flew the Indomitable like she was a fighter craft instead of a massive carrier. He dove between enemy ships, forcing them to risk hitting each other with their own weapons. He used the asteroid field at the edge of the battle zone as cover, popping out to fire and then disappearing again before return fire could land. Their formation is breaking, Yoonji said. They are not used to enemies who fight back this hard. Master Sergeant Junho watched the battle through the marine deck monitors. He saw a pirate destroyer, its engines damaged and drifting, come within boarding range. Captain requesting permission to board that destroyer. If we can capture it intact, we might gain valuable intelligence. Permission granted. Take your team and move fast. Junho and his Marines launched in boarding pods, small armored capsules that crossed the distance in seconds and latched onto the pirate destroyer's hull. Cutting charges blew open an airlock. The Marines poured inside, moving through corridors with the efficiency of people who had trained for this moment their entire careers. The pirates fought. Some used energy weapons. Others fired ballistic projectiles. A few tried to defend themselves with blades and makeshift clubs. It did not matter. The human Marines were faster, better trained, and motivated by years of frustration at being forced to disarm and disband. Within 10 minutes, the destroyer was secure. Chunyo stood on its bridge, surrounded by captured pirates, and sent a message back to the Indomitable. Ship secured, Captain. Minimal casualties. You will want to see what is in their computer system. Back on the main battlefield, the pirate fleet collapsed. Half their ships were destroyed or crippled. The rest fled, jumping to faster-than-light speed as quickly as their engines could charge. The survivors would carry word of what happened here to every pirate base and black market station in the frontier. The Indomitable held position, her weapons still charged but no longer firing. Around her, the civilian convoy slowly regrouped. One by one, they sent messages of gratitude. Some offered payment. Others simply wanted to know who had saved them. Captain Do-hyun sat in his command chair and felt exhaustion wash over him. His ship had been tested in real combat. She had survived. More than survived. She had dominated. The hidden shipyard floated deep in the Kuiper Belt, far from the eyes of the Galactic Council. It was not much to look at. Just a collection of old mining platforms connected by magnetic tethers and powered by jury-rigged solar collectors. But it was hidden, and it was human, and that made it perfect. Captain Doyen guided the Indomitable into the main dock, her engines coughing and sputtering like an old man climbing stairs. Around him, dozens of other humans watched from the platforms. They were all former military, all supposedly retired after the Council demanded Earth disarm. But retirement did not erase years of training or the knowledge of how to fight. "Welcome to nowhere," said a woman's voice over the communication channel. "This is Dr. Choi Suman. I run this facility, or what passes for a facility out here in the frozen dark." Doyen had heard of Dr. Choi. She had been one of Earth's top weapons researchers before the Council made humanity shut down all military research programs. Officially, she was teaching physics at a university on Mars. Unofficially, she had vanished 6 months ago. "Doctor," Doyen said, "I have a ship that needs work. A lot of work." "I saw your salvage claim make the news," Suman replied. Her voice carried a hint of amusement. "Half the galaxy is laughing at you. The other half thinks you are crazy. I think you might be exactly what we need." The Indomitable settled into the dock with a groan of metal. Doyen and his crew disembarked into a pressurized corridor that smelled of oil and ozone. Waiting for them was Dr. Choi Suman, a tall woman in her 50s with gray streaking through her black hair and eyes that burned with fierce intelligence. Beside her stood Master Sergeant Lee Junho, a broad-shouldered man with scars on his hands and the quiet confidence of someone who had seen real combat. "Let me be direct," Suman said as she led them through the facility. "The Council has been systematically dismantling humanity's ability to defend itself. They offer us trade and technology, but only if we give up our independence. They want us docile, dependent, safe." "And you disagree," Doyen said. "I think safety is a trap," Suman replied. "The galaxy is not a kind place. There are pirates, slavers, and empires that see humanity as a resource to exploit. The Council protects its members only when it is convenient. We need to be able to protect ourselves." They entered a massive workshop where dozens of engineers and technicians worked on various projects. Some were modifying weapons. Others were testing strange devices that hummed with barely contained energy. In one corner, a team was dissecting a captured alien fighter craft, studying its systems. "This is Engineer Nam Hyejin," Suman said, gesturing to a young woman covered in grease and holding a welding torch. "She specializes in hull modifications. If we are going to make the Indomitable combat-worthy again, we need her." Hyejin looked up at the mention of her name and grinned. "I heard we get to work on a carrier. A real one. Not these tiny council ships with their fancy shields and no armor. I have ideas. So many ideas." Lieutenant Park Ji-won stepped forward, her eyes bright with excitement. "Show us." What followed was 3 weeks of the most intense work Doyen had ever seen. The crew of the Indomitable worked alongside Suman's team, tearing apart the old ship and rebuilding her into something new. Something dangerous. The first challenge was power. The Indomitable's fusion reactors were old but reliable. However, they did not produce nearly enough energy to run modern weapon systems. Ji-won solved this by integrating salvaged alien power cores into the ship's infrastructure. It was dangerous work. Alien technology and human systems did not always play well together. Twice experimental reactors overloaded, filling entire sections with radiation, but slowly, carefully, they made it work. "The key is not to fight the alien technology," Ji-won explained during one late-night work session. "It is to make it think it belongs here. We trick the systems into accepting human control codes by running them through conversion matrices. It is not elegant, but it works." The second challenge was weapons. The Council had very specific rules about what kind of weapons civilian ships could carry. Energy weapons above a certain power level were banned. Missiles with targeting systems more sophisticated than basic guidance were illegal. Even railguns were restricted unless you had a special permit. Dr. Choi Suman smiled when Doyen mentioned these restrictions. "Then we will not use weapons. We will use tools." She showed him her solution. Mining lasers powerful enough to cut through asteroids could be modified to fire in rapid pulses. Asteroid deflection systems, designed to push rocks away from shipping lanes, made excellent kinetic launchers when loaded with the right ammunition. Even the ship's old point defense system could be upgraded with modern targeting software scavenged from destroyed pirate vessels. "None of this is technically illegal," Suman said. We are just repurposing industrial equipment. The Council cannot complain about that. Master Sergeant Lee Junho focused on tactics. He gathered the former military personnel and ran combat simulations constantly. Unlike the Council species, humans had spent centuries fighting each other. They knew every dirty trick, every psychological warfare technique, every way to turn an enemy's strength into weakness. The Council species fight by rules, Junho explained to the assembled crew. They have codes of honor, standardized formations, predictable tactics. We do not, we fight to win. That is our advantage. Not everything went smoothly.
One morning, an experimental shield generator exploded, killing 2 engineers and injuring 5 others.
The facility held a brief memorial service, then continued working. They did not have time to stop. They did not have the luxury of grief. Engineer Nam Hyejin proved invaluable during the hull reconstruction. She stripped away sections of the old armor and replaced them with a layered composite of human and alien materials. It made the ship look like a patchwork quilt, but tests showed the new armor could absorb incredible amounts of damage. The Council species rely on energy shields, Hyejin explained. Their armor is thin because they assume the shields will stop everything. But shields can fail. Armor does not fail, it just gets thinner. As the work progressed, word spread through the human colonies. More volunteers arrived. Some were engineers. Others were pilots or soldiers. A few were just civilians who were tired of watching humanity bow to the Council's demands. They came quietly, using false identities and civilian transport ships. The Council monitored human space closely, but they could not watch everyone all the time. Ambassador Yoon Mira visited the facility in the 4th week. She looked exhausted. Dark circles shadowed her eyes and her hands trembled slightly as she accepted a cup of coffee from Doyon. The Council is asking questions, she said. They want to know where the Indomitable is. They want to inspect it. I have been giving them excuses and filing legal delays, but I cannot hold them off forever. How long do we have? Doyon asked. Maybe 2 weeks, maybe less. She looked around at the bustling workshop. Is this going to work? Can you really turn that old ship into something that can stand against Council vessels? Doyon did not answer immediately. He thought about the new reactors humming in the Indomitable's core. He thought about the weapons hidden in plain sight as mining equipment. He thought about his crew, tired but determined, working day and night to build something the galaxy had never seen before. I do not know if it will work, he said finally, but I know we have to try, because if we do not, humanity will spend the rest of its existence as the galaxy's pet species, tolerated but never respected, protected but never free. Mira nodded slowly. Then I will buy you as much time as I can. But Captain, when this ship flies again, the whole galaxy will be watching. Do not make me regret helping you. 3 days before the Council's deadline, the Indomitable powered up her new engines for the first time. The hybrid reactors roared to life, sending energy coursing through every system. Lights flickered on across the hull. Weapons systems armed themselves. The old carrier that had been destined for the scrapyard now hummed with barely restrained power. Lieutenant Ji-won stood on the bridge, monitoring readouts with intense focus. All systems are green. Power output is stable. We are ready. Captain Doyon sat in the command chair and felt the ship respond to his touch. She was no longer the vessel he had served on 20 years ago. She was something new, something unexpected. Take us out, he ordered. The Indomitable rose from the dock and glided into the darkness of space. Behind her, the hidden shipyard grew smaller. Ahead lay the frontier territories where pirates raided with impunity, and the Council's authority was weak. It was time to see if their monster could truly fight. The scrapyard floated in the darkness like a graveyard of giants. Thousands of dead ships drifted through Sector 447, their hulls broken and their engines cold. Some were barely recognizable, torn apart by weapons or time. Others looked almost peaceful, as if they were only sleeping and might wake up at any moment. Captain Han Doyon stood on the observation deck of his salvage vessel, staring at the ship he had come to destroy. The Indomitable hung in the black, its gray hull scarred with the marks of 2 centuries of service. She was old. She was ugly, but she had been his home once many years ago. Captain, the Galactic Council observers are requesting access to the bridge, said Lieutenant Park Ji-won, walking up beside him. She was shorter than most of the crew, but her reputation as an engineer made up for any lack of height. People listened when she spoke about ships. Let them come, Doyen said. His voice was tired. They want to watch us cut her apart. Might as well give them a good show. 3 aliens materialized on the deck a moment later, their forms shimmering as the transport beam released them. The tallest was Avrelian with blue skin and 4 arms. His name was unpronounceable, but he had told the humans to call him Observer Prime. The other 2 were shorter, stockier creatures from the Thros Confederacy, their faces hidden behind breathing masks. Captain Doyen, Observer Prime said, his translator device making his voice sound mechanical and cold. We are here to ensure compliance with Council Resolution 7744. All human military vessels must be decommissioned and recycled. The materials will be redistributed to species with more advanced technological needs. Doyen forced himself to smile. Of course. We understand the rules. This vessel, Observer Prime continued, walking toward the window, is particularly outdated. 200 years old, yes? Using chemical propulsion and primitive fusion reactors? He made a sound that the translator interpreted as laughter. Humanity's attachment to such relics is amusing. In our empire, we would have recycled this scrap a century ago. One of the Thros observers moved closer to the window, studying the Indomitable with what looked like curiosity. Why did humans build such inefficient designs? The power-to-mass ratio is terrible. The weapon systems are laughable. Even your armor plating uses outdated composite materials. We built what we could with what we had, Ji-won said quietly. Her hands were clenched into fists, but her voice stayed calm. How primitive, Observer Prime said. He turned away from the window as if the ship was not worth another second of his attention. Begin the dismantling process. We will observe to ensure proper protocols are followed. The Council expects this vessel to be completely recycled within 10 standard days. After the observers left, Doyen and Ji-won stood in silence for a long moment. Behind them, Corporal Kim Tae-hyun approached. He was young, barely 25, but he had sharp eyes and quick hands. He had served on modern Council ships and knew their systems well. Captain, Tae-hyun said, I have to ask. Why did you volunteer for this job? Anyone could have done the salvage work. Why did it have to be you? Doyen touched the window, his palm flat against the cold surface. Because I served on her. 20 years ago, before we made contact with the rest of the galaxy, she was the finest ship in the human fleet back then. She saved my life more times than I can count. And now we have to destroy her, Ji-won said, because the Council says she's obsolete. Because they want us to forget how to build our own ships and rely on their technology instead. That's politics, Doyen said. Ambassador Yoon Mira is fighting those battles for us. We just follow orders. But even as he said the words, he did not believe them. Something felt wrong about this whole situation. The Council had been too eager to decommission humanity's military fleet. They had offered technological exchanges and trade agreements, but always with conditions, always with restrictions. Captain, Ji-won said suddenly, I need to inspect the ship before we begin cutting. Standard salvage protocol requires a full system check to identify any hazardous materials or unstable reactors. Doyen looked at her. She was staring at him with an intensity that made him pay attention. How long will that take? At least 3 days, maybe 4. Her expression did not change, but something in her eyes told him she had a reason for the delay. Do it, he said. Take Tae-hyun with you. I want a complete report on everything still functional aboard that ship. The next day, Ji-won returned with news that made Doyen sit up straight in his chair. They met in his private quarters, away from any possible listening devices. Tae-hyun was with her, carrying a data pad that glowed with files and documents. Captain, there's something you need to see, Ji-won said. She activated the data pad, and holographic text appeared in the air between them. I was going through the Indomitable's computer core, checking for radiation leaks and system failures. But I found something else. Hidden files, encrypted with old Earth military codes. What kind of files? Doyen asked. Project Phantom, Tae-hyun said. It was a research program from 60 years ago, back when Earth was still fighting corporate wars. They were developing something called adaptive warfare systems, technology that could learn from enemy tactics and modify itself in real time. Doyen felt his heart beat faster. Why was this never implemented? The project was shut down, Ji-won said. Too expensive. Too experimental. But the research is all here, stored in the Indomitable's core. Blueprints, test results, everything. And Captain, some of this technology is more advanced than what the Council uses now. They just approach the problems differently than we did. This changes things, Doyen said slowly. There's more, Jiwan continued. I checked the legal documents for the decommissioning. There's a clause that allows private salvage rights if a vessel contains undisclosed research or unique historical value. We could claim the ship legally. We could keep her. Doyen stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the Indomitable drifted in the darkness, waiting for her fate to be decided. The aliens thought she was worthless. They had laughed at humanity's primitive technology. But maybe they had laughed too soon. If we do this, Doyen said, the Council will not be happy. They want us dependent on their technology. They want us weak. Then maybe it's time to stop doing what they want, Jiwan said. Doyen made his decision. File the salvage claim. Use every legal loophole we have. And get me Ambassador Yoon on a secure channel. We are going to need political cover for what comes next. 3 days later, the observers returned to check on their progress. They found Captain Doyen waiting for them with a smile and a legal document. I regret to inform you that the Indomitable cannot be dismantled at this time, Doyen said. We have filed a formal salvage claim under Galactic Commerce Law, Section 445, Paragraph 12. The ship contains unique historical research that qualifies it for preservation. Observer Prime's blue skin darkened with what might have been anger. This is unacceptable. The Council will not allow this. The law is clear, Doyen said. You are welcome to challenge it. But until then, this ship belongs to me. The observers left in a storm of angry translator static. Alone on the bridge, Doyen looked out at his ship and allowed himself a small smile. They had laughed at the old vessel. They had called her worthless scrap. Soon they would learn how wrong they were.